Good morning, everyone. I'm Edith Makra. I'm the Director of Environmental Initiatives for the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. I'm filling in for Mayor Burns, Mayor of Geneva today, who is busy representing the Mayor's Caucus on a discussion about transit-oriented design having to do with the crafting of the new Northern Illinois Transportation Authority. I'll be filling in. And I'm really glad to have you all here today at the Environment and Energy Committee. Today, you're mostly here to help us. We really have a lot of sessions where we're sharing good information, and we will be doing that today as well, particularly if you're new to the Greenest Region Compact. But if you've got some experience with it, or even if you don't, we really need your help and need help in updating the Greenest Region Compact. And we are thrilled to have expert help with us today from a few folks who have used it, and then from Capstone students at Northern Illinois University. But just for some foundational comments, 10 years ago, 10 years in March, the Greenest Region Compact was launched, and it was designed to enable municipalities of all sizes and strengths advance sensible, suitable sustainability, really tailored for municipalities and really designed with municipal input. It was basically a compilation of all the sustainability plans and initiatives that we could find at the time. There were about 30 sustainability plans that were integrated into the Greenest Region Compact. And it was designed in three parts that serve distinct purposes, and I'll go over those a little bit. But the actual compact is a simple statement of support for a set of consensus sustainability goals. The GRC framework is a tool that supports municipalities in translating GRC goals into a simple sustainability plan or an assessment to guide their own sustainability actions. And we are really thrilled to hear from Countryside and the city of DeKalb to have talked about that. And then what we do best is the GRC creates collaboratives where we take collaborative action to work together for GRC goals. And we're best at that. We consider it the most fun. I always say we're not planners, we're doers. And we'll talk about some of the programs that have really stemmed from the Greenest Region Compact, probably most notably many of the communities. And actually, raise your hand or say yes in the chat if you're part of the EV Readiness Program, which is are currently a very robust program that has municipal involvement and stems from the Greenest Region Compact. Yay, thank you. I love it. Another program that stemmed from the Greenest Region Compact was our Greenest Region Core. We were really proud of this program as well. And at the time that we started the Greenest Region Core, the time I started the Greenest Region Compact, there were only 3 communities in our entire metro region that had sustainability staff. We created the Greenest Region Core, a partnership with AmeriCorps to provide sustainability talent to municipalities, and that program ran for 3 years. And although it has ended, we're very proud of it, and we're very thrilled to have Greenest Region Core members fully integrated into the sustainability universe. And I will ask you to raise your hand or thumbs up if you are part of the Greenest Region Core and now work in sustainability. Thank you, Tessa. Cheryl, looking for your thumb or your wave. So we're very proud of that program. And this, again, all came from the Greenest Region Compact. So we feel pretty good about these accomplishments. And we thank all of the municipal leaders, staff, and community activists who have engaged with the GRC over these past 10 years. So this big birthday for us, it's an opportunity for us to reflect and consider our future and to learn how we can better support the municipalities who are part of our growth and our success. So today's meeting is about looking back just for a few minutes, taking stock of where we're at and looking forward. So we really do need your input to update and improve the GRC. But one of the core reasons for the meeting today is another GRC goal that we have, and that's in our leadership category that tells us to engage with academia to support the Greenest Region Compact. And we've spent a very fruitful semester with very talented students and faculty at Northern Illinois University's Institute for the Study of Environment, Sustainability, and Energy. And they've been analyzing the GRC. So we're thrilled to get a report from them, from undergraduate and graduate students working together on an update to the Greenest Region Compact as a valuable service to the caucus. So I am going to start off the meeting with a brief sort of overview of the GRC, where we're at, and then we have some Zoom poll questions for you, and we'll get into the to the presentations. Okay, screen look okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay. So the Greenest Region Compact, I've been talking about that, and as I said, there are three parts to it. But we also have the Climate Action Plan for the Chicago region, and then we have this vision and dream of a proposed tracking and reporting system. So I'll just touch on those in a very brief intro here. The Greenest Region Compact, so again, if you're new to this is just the pledge, this is just the goals, and we ask municipalities and counties, and we've had councils of governments or COGs also support the Greenest Region Compact by municipal resolution. And we're very excited to welcome Western Springs to the group as our 166th local government to adopt the GRC, and all 10 councils of governments in the region have adopted the Greenest Region Compact goals. So that gets us so far. That gets us to all work together and agree to a set of goals. The Greenest Region Compact framework is part two, and that is the very robust spreadsheet document, if you've taken a look at it, that can be tailored for both local and regional action. It was really designed to support municipalities to use it as a tool, and we'll hear from Gail in Countryside and Scott and DeKalb about how they use the tool. And it is just a tool, so there's no expected product for it, but use it to assess your sustainability actions and see what from the compact framework can be useful to you. So I just picked this one from Schaumburg, where they used the Greenest Region Compact spreadsheet, put it on a shared drive, and had different departments provide input. The neat thing about this GRC exercise they did is the sustainability coordinator at the time didn't realize that arts was a part of sustainability. So they integrated some from their arts planning into the sustainable communities section of the GRC and used it in the draft of the comprehensive green action plan for the village. And at the regional level, the Greenest Region Compact framework works to advise us and then help us advocate for and align support for us to do these collaborative programs. And this one is the first one really where we tested the GRC to work both locally and regionally. And this is from the energy section of the GRC framework, where there are two actions. Adopt codes and permitting practices that support renewable energy systems in the community and facilitate the adoption of renewable technologies by adapting building and zoning codes. And that really was what the Soul Smart program was about. The Soul Smart program is nationally driven program that supports municipalities in streamlining codes and policies. And when they first launched the program, they were looking for local partners to help municipalities and counties go through the program, and we were very successful at that. So the Mayor's Caucus led three cohorts of communities to earn the Soul Smart designation. And if you'll note the chart, so there's the GRC goal that it's aligned with, but you'll note that Illinois is #1 in the country for the number of Soul Smart designated communities. And we really feel that this stems from the unity that we had around these goals in the Greenest Region Compact. So there are 61 communities in Illinois that have earned Soul Smart. And without getting too much into this slide deck, this is the foundation for the EV Readiness Program as well, which has been very successful for us. Then came the Climate Action Plan for the Chicago region, which came from a different direction. So this wasn't really driven by a need for municipal alignment on sustainability. This was driven by outside forces when the federal government first pulled out of the Paris Agreement, and there was a growing recognition and a dependency on what they call subnational units of government to take up climate action. You know, that climate action, it's a bundle of local actions, important local actions that sort of tie up into meaningful climate action. So the Mayor's Caucus advocated for and accepted an opportunity with the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy in the European Union to create this first climate action plan. And Those climate action plans, students may know that there's two more climate action plans that have followed, but I'm going to stick with this one because this climate action plan was specifically tailored for municipalities and designed to integrate with the Greenest Region Compact. So this is why it's the one we're focusing on. It's also the one, the only climate action plan for the region that has climate adaptation, which is equally important. So I don't have time to get into much detail, but want you to look at this is a goal from the Climate Action Plan, and the strategies should look familiar in terms of how the Greenest Region Compact is designed. So this is where we're looking for that integration and for us to have communication between the two documents, even though Climate Action Plan had, kind of come from a different angle. So there's our strategies, and then a little bit different on the Climate Action Plan versus the Greenest Region Compact. We look at more factors that are associated with those actions, including greenhouse gas reduction potential, cost, and effort required. There's also something that I really like about the Climate Action Plan. If you look at those little icons, that was new for the Climate Action Plan. I think it might come back in the Greenest Region Compact. That idea of defining what municipalities can do through three levers of municipal strength. And the first one with the three little people, let's see if I can hover over that, is to lead by doing. The two people high-fiving each other is to encourage others to take on climate action with the municipal leadership, and then finally to enact codes and policies. So there's our climate action plan. We also, different from the GRC, integrated partnerships and then equity outcomes and benefits. So those are all features that may get carried forward into the update of the Greenest Region Compact. And then to put what was intended for this alignment just side by side here, we have the strategy that basically describes our Soul Smart program here, the idea of advancing solar development by streamlining codes and policies. And you'll see the Greenest Region Compact framework and the Climate Action Plan are aligned on those actions. And the Climate Action Plan is more focused. It's a little bit smaller in focus for the number of strategies versus the Climate Action Plan. But the difference is that the Climate Action Plan is all about outcomes that are related to climate mitigation, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, or climate adaptation, which is building resilience. So this is the design intent, but it's not done yet. And then finally, I throw this slide in. This was another partnership that we had with the university. We had students at University of Chicago do a class on the Sustainable Development Goals, and they looked at the Greenest Region Compact and local action to align with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So if you start in the beige in the far left, through to the Climate Action Plan and the Greenest Region Compact, and finally to what Deer Park was doing for very sensible strategies like increased biking paths and walking paths, more public transit options, and then the campaign for EVs and EV infrastructure, which they achieved through the EV readiness program. So I really like this demonstration of how our local actions can align across our plans. And then now here's the gap in the Greenest Region Compact. And the gap was when the Greenest Region Compact was launched, we had those two parts, the political compact and the framework, but there was no reporting. And that didn't take long for us to realize that this was a shortage or a shortcoming. So we'd always hope that we would have it, but it was bigger than we could tackle at the time we launched the Greenest Region Compact. But we think we can still use this framework or template and these actions and then start to report. So take, for example, these same goals related to Soul Smart. Soul Smart, when there was a new program, used to contact us and say, well, how many solar projects have been built? What's the kilowatt hours capacity for the new solar projects? What about cost savings or CO2 avoided? Or Hanover Park reported the number of or the amount of revenue that came from the construction of solar projects. And these are all worthwhile metrics that we would love to see integrated into the GRC, and that is our next step. And I jokingly say I've always had a crush on the Sustainable Jersey program, really since I started on the Greenest Region Compact, knowing that this program is a very robust statewide program. They've got a staff of something like 14, and it's a partnership between a not-for-profit organization and some universities. And they have more than 460 at the last I counted municipalities that are enrolled in the Sustainable Jersey program, and they're aligned on goals and objectives, and they report actions and share information. And this is just an example of a little profile that is embedded into the Sustainable Jersey program. And that's what I think we should have something like that. And so that's why we're asking for your opinion, and we're asking for help from NIU. So oops. And so this is kind of the steps on updating the GRC. So what we need to do is what we've got NIU here, who's helped us with analyzing and assessing the Greenest Region Compact use and outcomes. Updating the strategies, again, help from NIU, in looking at programs that have ended, those that don't make sense anymore. And to do an additional update is that we will integrate climate action plan strategies. Again, there's sort of a design that those were always going to be, come back together. And then the big step is to design a reporting and tracking tool. And I have to say the team has been working on looking into some of the options. We want your ideas on that as well. And then a big step, once we get that reporting and tracking tool together, is that there will be a ongoing support to help municipalities engage with that tool, learn how to use it, and get used to reporting. We want to make sure that it's usable for municipalities, simple and meaningful. A couple of caveats, just to put it out there, is that we have 166 municipalities who have adopted the Greenest Region Compact resolution, and I don't want to redo that. There's a story to it. There was a Greenest Region Compact 1. I don't want to have to go through another round of municipal resolutions if we can make everything fit under those existing goals, and I think we can. The second thing, and this is just an inside story, I should ask in the chat if anybody knows why there's a 2 in the GRC, but I'd like to drop that and just go with the Greenest Region Compact. So if anyone has feedback on that, otherwise I'll answer what the GRC 2 is about. So with that, I will conclude. Any questions on the GRC background?
When do you expect the update?
We hope to get it done by the end of the year.
Okay.
We have some funding through the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program, which created the second and third regional climate action plans. And so that funding will end in 2027. So we have support to do that. What we don't have support for, and goodness knows I've tried, is that idea of supporting municipalities, that we would have a staff person who would be available to help municipalities set up the platform, learn how to integrate their sustainability actions, and then help support them in reporting. Is we don't have funding for that. We've tried. Open to anybody who has funding suggestions on that. So nobody had an answer on the GRC 2. So there was a GRC 1, and that was a very simple program, which is very different. It had 12 strategies. That was done in 2008 or 2009. And there were municipalities that adopted the Greenest Region Compact, and the ComEd had helped distribute compact fluorescent bulbs to the communities that adopted the GRC. So it was a very small scale compared to what we have now, but didn't want to come up with a new name and just update it. So that's why I didn't really want to do a GRC 3, even though it will be a third iteration of it. Go ahead, Elise.
Okay, I just have maybe a comment or an observation. Maybe I'll get to this as part of the study, but I've found that some of the links or programs in the original framework don't exist anymore.
Yep. We're doing a cleanup. If you found any, we certainly would appreciate the feedback on that. That'll help us sort of zero in on the cleanup. But yes, some of the programs.
Okay, I can send some to you, or maybe, as you said, the students or whoever's working on the update have already covered that.
Yep. Thank you. I'm just looking at Ben's comment. So, yep. I will say the climate action plan, we put that out as an option for municipalities to adopt. We didn't push it as hard as we did the Greenest Region Compact, but we only had 33 municipalities that adopted the goals of the climate action plan. So really fundamentally, the Greenest Region Compact is much more useful to municipalities than the climate action plan in its current form. So, and with that, I will stop. I won't stop talking because I'm going to introduce our next speakers.
Edith.
Okay. We have polls, correct?
Yes.
Correct. So the next step is that we have some poll questions just to get your feedback on the Greenest Region Compact, your familiarity with it, and your usefulness. So does everyone see a poll pop up on their screen? Great.
Yes.
So if you would take a minute and answer how you use the GRC in your community. We'll note that if you are not that used to Zoom polls, there are multiple questions in that. So you will want to scroll down in that white dialog box. And you can either do that if you have a mouse, you can scroll down, or you'll see a little gray bar off to the far right, and you can use that slider to scroll down to questions 2, 3, and 4. Thank you for those responses. So 22 responses. We'll give it just another second or two here. 30 seconds. Okay, let's take a look at the results. So I think everyone can see that, but we've got good response. More than half have adopted the GRC and are using it or have used it in adopting. I can't see the chat question, so I guess to Juliet or Tori, if you can see the chat. What, there are some other comments there. We have one person.
I don't see any. Yeah, we're not seeing any.
Okay, great. So most are finding it useful, and only one community hasn't adopted the GRC. If we can help you with that, hopefully you will take action on that. So communities, yes, continuing to use it, and others have used the GRC in developing their goals, but it's not relevant now. They've kind of moved on from that, and we certainly welcome your comments on that in the chat. And nobody responding that it's not useful. Good to hear. Probably the ones that didn't find it useful didn't come to this meeting, so, but self-selecting there. And then, as I had sort of suggested, is that the climate action plan just had less uptake on it than the original GRC, so a little bit more communities not adopting the climate action plan goals. And that we did that in 2021, so you didn't miss anything. It'll come back to you in the GRC, promise. Okay, and then climate action plan, is that useful? Again, sort of modest usefulness here. A few communities, two or three communities that are using it and find it useful. So anything in the chat?
Yes, it looks like from Ben in Naperville for the GRC, he said that the city adopted 4 years before he joined, and then there was an additional plan prepared by a local advocacy group. Things have shifted politically since then, and he's interested in revisiting how Naperville might use the GRC to refresh some priorities since they've adopted it. And then Aurora adopted the GRC in 2016, but there is no record of it being used by Aurora staff and not yet available on their website.
I will say that the original climate action plan for Aurora does reference the GRC.
Yeah.
May not be used now, but that was part of its design.
Beth Drucker notes if any municipal staff members wish they had more support, engagement, contact Go Green. And then again from Naperville in regards to the cap, the city has not yet approved doesn't have approved climate goals. Tessa Murray notes remembering adopting the cap in Northbrook to show the support, but is more tailored to Northbrook's goals, so it's more useful. Aligned with the GRC.
Great. It's great. Thanks. Keeping it up in the chat. I don't know if we need to go through all of them, but thank you for the feedback there. So the good response there. And next, let's hear from some users of the GRC. So we've asked 2 communities to present, and remembering that the GRC is designed for all municipalities. It is designed from the municipal perspective for municipal strategies. So we wanted to pick communities for this presentation today, this discussion that don't have, extraordinary staff or multiple staff working on sustainability. So we're really pleased to have Gail Paul and Scott Zach, who have done work with the GRC in their own communities. And we're also grateful for the Gail and Scott, who provided some feedback in interviews working with the NIU Capstone students. So they've been very generous in helping us understand how the GRC can be useful. So Gail Paul is the city administrator for the city of Countryside. Gail left a career in public accounting in 1992 and began public service in local government. And thank you for joining us, Gail, in local government. Gail is renowned for having overseen the development of Countryside's municipal complex as the first net zero municipal building in Illinois. She also generously hosted a tour for the Environment Committee in 2023, along with Mayor McDermott. So it's a really cool facility, and we'll find a reason to come back. And so we appreciate what she's done, both in terms of leading leading sustainability planning in Countryside, and then actually taking actions. We're also really glad to have Scott Zach with us, who is the Community Engagements Manager for the city of DeKalb. Scott was the news director for WLBK Radio in DeKalb for 15 years and covered city government. You should talk to Cheryl Scott, who also is a journalist and then came over to government instead of reporting on it, doing it. So that's what Scott's story was, taking a strong interest in local government and then joined the public sector, working for the city of DeKalb in 2020. Scott is also the liaison to DeKalb's Citizen Environment Commission, which is how he came to find the Greenest Region Compact, and he'll tell us the story of that. So Gail and Scott both will share their experience with the GRC. Gail, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Edith. Good morning, everyone. I've been asked to talk about how we use the GRC in setting our goals, and do we still use it now? Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. Our process was the mayor appointed a sustainability committee, which is made up of 3 aldermen, and I am the staff liaison to that committee. The first thing that was done is we joined the Greenest Region Compact, and we began a very comprehensive framework review. It was painstakingly done over about a year. Surprisingly, we found that many of the strategies were already completed, which was nice. We used that framework then to draft a sustainability plan. We had the sustainability plan approved by ordinance through our city council. So the sustainability committee right now maintains the sustainability plan. The committee sets annual initiatives at the beginning of the year, and then at the end of the year, we go through what we've accomplished. Each initiative is assigned to staff by me. So it's not just one person doing all the work. We each take turns, and it depends on if it's related to their departments. The committee approves all new sustainable programs, so staff will come back, for example, with the EV charging cohort. We would present the information to them, and they would direct us whether or not to participate. We do an annual review, our first meeting of the year, of the prior year's achievements. And we also highlight these in our newsletter so that our residents can see our commitment to sustainability. In our sustainability plan, it also requires us to update the plan every 3 years. So a good review is done of the plan and the framework. What I found in using the GRC framework was it was a great way to get started, because that's the hardest part of putting together a plan, is getting started. It was organized into 10 categories so that if a community only wanted to tackle one at a time, it could. We decided to tackle all 10 at once and set our strategies from there. I found that there's a lot of flexibility in setting goals for your community. And we did receive great support from the GRC staff. A couple things that I didn't care for, which was already brought up by Alyssa, is many informational links were outdated. So the resources were not available. So that's, to me, very important to help communities, because again, you might want to do something, but it's how exactly do we get started? What organization can help us with this? And I thought that several strategies were unrealistic for smaller communities. Some things that could apply to Cook County aren't going to apply to Little Countryside. So I did have a discussion with the students about it may be a good idea to have one for small and large, 2 different frameworks. Just a couple of our major sustainability initiatives. We obtained 2 flow beehives. You can see at the top right, the honey coming out. We did have honey produced from 1 this year, and all of the jars were given out to residents. We're hoping that both produce honey next year, and we will be giving those out at events. We are managing our special events sustainably. We are not providing bottled water anymore. We have water refill stations. We have, at our back to school event, given out water bottles to all the students, and we do that periodically at other events. We have built and we currently maintain 3 pollinator gardens, which you can see on the bottom right. We have one at Flag Creek Golf Course. We have one at our large main park in Countryside. And then we also have one where we've partnered with Ideal School in town. And last, we've earned bronze recognition for our EV readiness. So in the future, what we have planned is, 1, we are setting up an award program to encourage businesses and residents to try to be more sustainable, whether it's solar panels. We put in a program, no mow until Mother's Day. So we are in the process of doing that. Hopefully that will be done this year. We have EV chargers at our municipal facility, but we want to install them at our golf course. And the big goal is we want to construct a net zero energy public works facility. The problem is we can't find the land. So we are working very hard to assemble 3 acres for that. And we also just, I mean, for the future, we have 2 multi-use paths. The state is putting one in for one of the projects they're working on. We are designing another one. And Cook County will be putting one in when they redo Plainfield Road. So we will have a complete circle around our city when that is all done. And that's probably about 5 years out. I want to thank you for your time. My contact information is there. If you want to call me, email me, I'd be happy to share any information. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Could you just remind everyone the population of Countryside, just how small are you?
6,000 residents.
So when I talk about the GRC building capacity is communities of all sizes and strengths. It's not always the tiny communities that are
Right.
struggling on capacity. So great job there. Scott, tell us what's going on in DeKalb.
My pleasure. Well, thank you all for having me. My Greenest Region Compact story goes back a couple years, and we were stuck. We were stuck in the mud, and the Greenest Region Compact and the spreadsheet helped us to get unstuck. So our first sustainability plan was approved back in 2016. It didn't even contain the word climate change in it, so it was long overdue for an update. And our environmental commission, which I'm sure many of you have similar commissions made up of just residents, took on the Herculean task of trying to update it. But as Gail mentioned there, getting started is the hardest part. And for us, that means at least a year, if not several years, of every month sustainability plan update being listed on our commission agenda, as we just kind of kept spinning our wheels in that mud about how to tackle it. We had each commission member try to take up an area, and each month basically people came back and said, we're totally overwhelmed by this, we don't even know where to start. So we brought the city staff in, and the city staff's role was to basically set the goals and the action steps that that the city could actually take, not pie in the sky type of stuff. But then, of course, environmental minded folks that the commission members were worried that perhaps it didn't go too far. So I guess we came to a great compromise that we would take this sustainability plan, and then we'd have the Greenest Region Compact and the framework that as we wanted to go beyond what was in the actual plan, we would always have the Greenest Region Compact to go to further our sustainability goals and to provide guidance for the parts, the goals that are in the sustainability plan. And then if we wanted to go further, we would always have the Greenest Region Compact. So as I share my screen here, let's see, I think I'm going to have to do a little swap here. All right. Are you seeing the full screen or just the? Do I need to do the
swap displays?
All right. Look good now?
Looks great.
All right. So thanks to the Greenest Region Compact and this great compromise, we were able to approve our sustainability plan. And then the last section of the plan is the section called goal alignment, where, as you'll see there on the left-hand side of your screen, it gives an explanation of the Greenest Region Compact. And then in the goals, it talks about approving the GRC resolution and joining the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, which were both done in 2004. So thanks to the Greenest Region Compact getting us out of the mud, we've been able to finally move on to other things. A big thing on our sustainability plan, and it's reflected in the Greenest Region Compact as well, is public education. So we're lucky enough that our local paper lets us do monthly columns written by our environmental commission members. So here's one that was done last month by our member Sean Langley, who is husband to NIU's sustainability director, and he tied in the America 250 theme, which DeKalb is making a big deal about, and tied it into the environment. So we've done public education. As part of the sustainability plan, we revamped what was formerly called the Pride Awards and revamped them as the DeKalb Star Awards. And here in NIU's Founder Memorial Library last month at their Earth Fest, these are the recipients of our DeKalb Star Awards for various achievements by community members to promote sustainability. Earth Fest is a great thing. It's held every April. I'm sure NIU and DeKalb and DeKalb would like to have any of the neighboring communities join us. So let me know if you'd like more information as that comes around. So we revamped our Star Awards. Before we were just getting a trickle of nominations, and since we've done that, we've had a flood of nominations. Much like Gail was mentioning, the Plastic People documentary, the NIU showed it at the Egyptian Theater, and they have a program where a city that was featured in that documentary gives recognition to businesses that go without plastic bags. Since we're not quite there, we kind of adopted that idea for DeKalb Green Business Program, using actually NIU has a green office program. So we work with them to kind of rework that framework to come up with a DeKalb Green Business Program, and we're encouraging stores and restaurants and offices to earn this recognition and put a decal in their window. Right after we adopted our sustainability plan, we were in the EV readiness program, and because of that, for the first time, the term electric vehicle is referenced in our Unified Development Ordinance. Our Public Works Department got a $250,000 grant from the Morton Arboretum to trim some trees, take some dead ones down, and then replace all the diseased trees that are being taken down with new ones. We've been able to support several solar farms here in DeKalb. We've ordered our first hybrid bus. A big limitation for us adopting electric buses is because our transit facility right now is just basically 2 trailers and fencing and does not have the infrastructure to support electric buses. So we're, with federal funds, are building a new transit facility, and we're forward thinking to make sure that has the electrical infrastructure to be able to support those buses. And then our biggest thing has been in the realm of public transportation. That's what used to be called the Husky bus. That's one of our DeKalb public transit system buses, and we wrapped it to look like a train because we're trying to promote the fact that we run a bus shuttle from Park and Ride in downtown DeKalb out to the Elburn train station. And since we've promoted that more and increased the number of trips each day and lowered the fares, that's up to 44,000 passengers served by that line every year. And then thinking even longer term, we've begun the planning to hopefully have a extension of Metra service from Elburn out to DeKalb, an expansion of the UP West line. We've completed our feasibility study, and we just hired our firm to do the next study, the Pell study. So we're on to step 2 of that very lengthy process of hopefully having Metra extended out to DeKalb soon. So just in conclusion, like I said, we were stuck for several years, and embracing the Greenest Region Compact has allowed us to do all those things and finally get that update off our commission agendas.
Thank you, Scott. Awesome. Excellent initiatives on both Countryside and DeKalb. Any questions for Scott or Gail on either their programs or their interpretation of the GRC? Getting started.
I love the idea of you showed the New Jersey thing about earning those recognitions like the electric vehicle program. That would be a great help to the smaller staffs who need a little hand holding. That would be tremendous, and also about eliminating the two and not bringing back to the council over and over again is also a great idea.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay, so as I said, in order to update the GRC, we really need to do a critical analysis of where we're at with the GRC and to do an assessment. And we were very fortunate to have NIU, the Study of Environment, Sustainability, and Energy at NIU take this on as a capstone project. So this was really Melissa Burlingham Greenhagen's idea, and recognizing how badly we need this, we were just thrilled to be able to work with Melissa. She is the Assistant Director of the Institute for the Study of Environment, Sustainability, Energy, Environmental Studies at NIU. She has a dual master's degree, both an MPA and an MS, and over 15 years of experience working in academia and local government. She saw the need to update the GRC not only as something useful for the municipalities, and I think everyone knows how important NIU is to public administration in the region, but also as a really good opportunity for students to learn. And, it's been a challenging project, and she really saw that this was going to be a good exercise for students. So she was incredibly patient with us, both working with municipal staff and the students sort of wrestling in this really big project, and working with several students, both graduate and undergraduate, to update that. So we'll hear from Melissa. And then, Melissa, do you want to introduce Gabriel Foreman, or shall I briefly?
You go ahead.
Okay, you can fill in there. So Gabriel Foreman is an undergraduate student at Environmental Studies in Northern Illinois University, again, and she's part of the ENVS 497 Capstone in Environmental Studies project, and she contributed to their student research and recommendations in supporting us. And she's the student spokesperson today, so we're welcome to both Gabriel and Melissa. So,
All right.
the floor is
Thanks,
yours.
Edith. I will share our screens real quick. We built our slideshow in Adobe Express, hence the internet browser. So thanks for inviting us to share our synthesis. We had a really amazing semester. The students worked with the Caucus to review the compact, and they had one practical question in mind, and that is, how can we'll call it the GRC remain useful, current, and accessible for municipalities at different stages of sustainability planning. So our presentation today is not intended to walk through every single recommendation. That is going to be a lot of time. Instead, we want to share major patterns from the student review and offer possible structure for moving the update process forward. So we'll start with explaining what the students did. Gabby is going to walk through the major findings and analysis for the student review, and then highlight the themes that emerged from the work, what those themes suggest about the structure of an updated GRC. We'll close with some examples and next steps, and then our goal for our focus is to keep the presentation focused on what's useful for your next phase of review. So very forward thinking. So our first section is going to give that context. I'm going to turn it over to Gabby to explain how students approached the review and what patterns emerged.
Thank you, Melissa. So in ENVS 497, we partnered with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus to look at the Greenest Region Compact through the lens of usability, relevance, and implementation. We reviewed goals, strategies, objectives, and supporting resources. We considered whether items still seemed accurate, whether wording needed clarification, resources, or examples needed to be updated, and whether some materials might work better outside of the core compact. We organized our recommendations into action-oriented categories, which are keep, update, merge, delete, or move to supporting materials. We want to emphasize that our work should be understood as a starting point for discussion. It is not a final decision. It gives the MMC a structured way to begin sorting what should remain, what should be refined, and what might belong in a different part of the framework. As students worked through the GRC, we used several guiding questions. We asked whether each item was still relevant and accurate for current municipal needs and regional contexts. We looked for places where the wording, resources, or examples needed to be updated. We flagged items that seemed outdated, duplicative, or overlapping with other parts of the framework. Finally, we looked for opportunities to better support implementation, reporting, and communication. The goal was not just to say whether an item was good or bad. The goal was to think about how the GRC could become clearer and more useful for communities to act on it. To organize the work across groups, we used 4 recommendation categories. Keep means the item still appears relevant and useful and could stay mostly unchanged. Update means the item still belongs in the GRC, but the wording, resources, examples, or implementation context should be refreshed. Merge means the item overlaps with other strategies or objectives and might be clearer if combined. Delete means the item may be outdated, duplicative, or no longer useful in the core framework. When Melissa, Oliver, and Tori consolidated the work from the student review, they identified a 5th category, move to supporting materials. Move means the content may still have value, but may work better as supporting material. That could include an appendix, checklist, implementation guide, resource list, example bank, or quick win tool. That last category is important. Move does not mean the content is unimportant. In some cases, moving information out of the core framework could actually make it easier for municipalities to use. This next section summarizes what we found after consolidating the student review. Across the reviewed material, students evaluated 421 items. The largest category was Keep, with 162 items. That shows that much of the existing GRC still has strong foundational value. The second largest category was Update, with 125 items. This is where we saw the biggest opportunity. Many items still belong in the GRC, but need clearer wording, updated resources, or better alignment with current municipal practice. The remaining items were recommended for merge, delete, or move to supporting materials. Specifically, there were 39 merge recommendations, 28 delete recommendations, and 67 move recommendations. The main takeaway is that the GRC does not need to be rebuilt from scratch. It has a strong foundation, but it would benefit from clearer wording, updated resources, reduced duplication, and a stronger distinction between core strategies and supporting implementation materials. The MMC is already aware of these issues and opportunities for improvement, which provides a solid basis for future revisions. The findings suggest 3 major conclusions. The GRC has a strong foundation. Many items remain relevant and continue to support municipal sustainable planning. There's a need for a strategic refresh. Some strategies need updated language, resources, and examples to reflect best current practices. Newer technologies, policy changes, funding opportunities, and municipal implementation needs. There's an opportunity for clearer structure. Some content may be useful, but not necessarily as part of the core compact. It could be easier to use if it were moved into an appendix, implementation guide, checklist, or resource library. So the student review points less towards replacement and more towards refinement, streamlining, and better organization. The largest areas reviewed were land with 89 items, water with 82 items, and sustainable communities with 60 items. That does not mean these topics are more important than the others. It means they contain more material and may have more varied implementation contexts. For example, land and water can involve municipal operations, private property, community behavior, regional systems, and long-term planning. That makes them especially important to review for clarity and usability. As part of this process, I worked directly on sections within the water and sustainable communities categories, which provided additional insight into the complexity and overlap within those areas. Smaller categories like leadership and economic development are still important, but may require a more focused review rather than large-scale restructuring. This slide shows where students identified items to keep. We do not need to walk through every number here. The key is that the keep category shows continuity. We found many strategies that still make sense and still support municipal sustainability planning. These may not need major rewriting. They may simply need consistent formatting, updated links, or clearer placement in the revised framework. As you can see, water had the most keeps within its section at 37. While this is in part because it is a larger section, I also found during my review that it is an incredibly strong section within the GRC. Through working on parts of the water section myself, I noticed that many of its recommendations were already practical, detailed, and easy to follow, which made the review process more straightforward. Even in cases where content are identified as keep, we still identified updated resources, examples, and supporting materials that could strengthen implementation and improve usability. The update category is where a lot of the practical work sits. There are items that still belong in the GRC, but need clearer wording, current references, updated examples, or better alignment with current municipal practice. We noticed several recurring reasons for update. Some language may be too broad for a newer user. Some actions may need a clear sense of scale, frequency, or measurability. For example, in areas where technology has changed, such as electric vehicle charging infrastructure, the GRC may benefit from more current language or updated resource links. The group I collaborated with approached our review through the lens of measurability. We found that measurability is an important tool for municipalities as it helps make objectives more clear, more actionable, and easier to evaluate. Improving measurability within the GRC would therefore make many objectives more understandable and usable for municipalities implementing them. Indicators within the GRC that describe measurability, scale, and frequency ultimately improve usability by making actions more clearly defined, easier to interpret, and more straightforward to implement. The merge and delete categories are smaller, but they are important for usability. A framework becomes harder to use when similar ideas appear in several places or when an item no longer reflects the current needs. Merging can reduce repetition and make the main action clearer. Deleting should be used carefully. It does not necessarily mean the topic is unimportant. It may mean that the wording is outdated, the term is duplicative, or the idea is better addressed somewhere else. The goal is not to make the GRC shorter just for the sake of being shorter. The goal is to make it easier to understand and easier to act on. I will turn it back to Melissa now to talk about the final category.
Thanks, Gabby. I'll add really quick that Tori was an undergraduate assistant in the class. She had worked with Downers Grove in the previous year on helping them to assess the Greenest Region Compact for their own sustainability planning. And Oliver Myers is one of the graduate students who worked with us in the class, and he just finished the MPA program at NIU. So we found in doing our review of the student review that we got a larger perspective of what the students were doing. And so we decided to create the category of move to supporting materials, and we think it might be one of the more useful ones. So we identified items that may still be valuable but work better as supporting material rather than as part of what we're calling a core compact. So this could include the materials that would move to a supporting area would be examples, checklists, technical definitions, resource links, model ordinances, case studies, other types of metrics. When we were doing this, every single student identified resources for the different areas in the Greenest Region Compact, and Oliver consolidated those into one Word document that's 50 pages long. So you'll have a lot to build on from there. So one possible benefit from the core GRC is that it could stay focused and readable, while an appendix or implementation guide could hold those more detailed tools. So for an example, a community might complete quick wins from an appendix that support the broader strategy without adding every means to accomplish it as an individual strategy in the compact. So the most important part of our findings, we think, is that what they suggest for a next version of the GRC. The student work points to 3 major framework themes, and those are clearer language, clearer responsibility, easier progress tracking, we hope. These themes move us from a spreadsheet of recommendations into broader conversation about how the GRC could function for a variety of municipal users. So for our first theme being clearer language, we found the GRC may be used by sustainability professionals, but it may also be used by municipal managers, elected officials, department staff, interns, volunteers, community partners, who are all newer to sustainability terminology. Even when the students were going through this information in class, there was a learning curve of figuring out what this information meant. So we feel that a revised version should be easier for a broad municipal audience to understand. And that could mean simplifying wording, defining technical terms, avoiding vague language, giving examples when big or ambiguous terms are used. Another recommendation is to focus on strategies as the main action layer. When the framework gets too deep into the difference between goals, objectives, sub-objective strategies, we found that it became harder to identify what a municipality is actually being asked to do. So if you just, similar to the CAP, if you have a goal and strategies, it becomes much like more clear, and then you don't have to have like, am I accomplishing this objective if I do this strategy? So just streamlined it a little. The point is not to oversimplify the work, but it's to make the action steps easier for municipalities to find. Our second theme is clarifying who the action is for. So some strategies are clearly about municipal operations. Others depend on community-wide action. Thinking back to that, the CAP, lead, act, and engage. Yes. Some require regional coordination with different utilities, park districts, counties, residents, businesses. Working in government is complex. We recognize that. So when these distinctions on how to act are not clear, municipalities may have trouble knowing whether they have the authority or the capacity or jurisdiction to act. So we think a possible update could be a tag for each strategy on the action type. For example, it could be municipal operations, community-wide action, regional or partner-based action. Going back on that, Cap, and I see someone putting something in the chat, and I don't know if that's for us or not.
It was just lead, encourage, and enact. Those are
Thank
the
you,
three.
lead it. Yeah, thank you. You'd think I'd know this after a semester, but
There's
you know,
so many terms. This is great,
Yeah,
though. I
yeah.
love it. Mhm.
So we think this second one would help make the GRC a more useful planning and possible reporting tool. And it would help communities understand where they can act directly versus where collaboration is needed. So further going towards the goals of the caucus. And then the last theme of progress tracking. So not every strategy needs a complex metric, but communities benefit when they can understand what progress looks like. So in some cases, a revised compact could identify whether an action is one-time, annual, semi-regular, ongoing, milestone-based. You know, how frequently do they need to be doing these in order to consider it achieved? It could also distinguish between policy steps, program steps, infrastructure steps, education, outreach. The students also raised the question of quick wins. So like if quick wins are organized in an appendix or checklist, they could help communities see where to start while tying back to a broader strategy. This was something that came up in many of the interviews the students had as well with the different communities. This could support both local planning and the caucus's ability to tell a regional progress story. Even if you just focused on reporting the quick wins, that's, you know, like something to like build off of. So based on the student review, one possible structure is to keep the core Greenest Region Compact focused and then build supporting layers around it. So the core framework could include goal area, strategy, a plain language description, and the primary action type. And then including tags or crosswalks that identify whether an action is municipal, community, regional, one-time, recurring, measurable, and the list goes on. And then the supporting materials could then hold the examples, case studies, definitions, resource links, model ordinances, whatever else would be helpful for a municipality or GRC, you know, user to achieve like checking off different strategies. Want to highlight the CAP here because the students reviewed the climate action plan and that they didn't see an easy way of incorporating it, like merging the two, and instead suggested treating the CAP as an alignment. So because many of the strategies in the Greenest Region Compact support the different areas of the CAP and vice versa. So it could just be tagging, like this supports CAP goal such and such. And you could do the same thing in the CAP. And because I find that merging the two documents might not be as helpful as you want it to be. So because they do come at it from different purposes. So multiple of the so let's see. Try and make sure I've covered everything. All right. So Gabby is now going to take us through some fun, like an example to illustrate what we found.
So this final section connects the recommendation categories to the kinds of decisions the MMC might want to make. The examples are not meant to resolve every item today. They are meant to show how the recommendation categories could be applied in practice. So this example shows how the recommendation categories could apply within one goal, which is reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The main takeaway is that the review is not simply about keeping or deleting items. It is about making the framework more clear. In this example, the revised structure would remove some objective layers and prioritize clear strategies. For instance, C1 and C1A could be combined, and C2A and C2B could be reorganized into clear municipal operations and community-wide emission strategies. It would also remove strategies or references that are outdated or likely to become outdated, such as the Carbon Climate Registry, while moving useful external programs and resources into a separate resource section. Overall, this keeps core framework focused on actions municipalities can understand and use, while still preserving helpful guidance outside the main strategy list. Instead of adding more strategies, this approach makes the existing framework more usable by clarifying, streamlining, and relocating supporting material. The same logic could be applied across the rest of the GRC. I will turn it back to Melissa for next steps in discussion.
Thanks again, Gabby. The student work gives a really good starting framework for next steps, I believe. So our next possible step is to review, for the caucus, is to review the student coded spreadsheet, which I have a few more updates to make before I send it to you, and identify where the caucus agrees with the initial classification of the strategies. From there, you could focus on a small set of structural decisions and go, you could decide what belongs in the core compact and in supporting materials, whether strategies should be tagged with one of the recommendations about municipal, community, regional, etc. What level of measurability and reporting could be included is another area. The students attempted to identify in some sections, and then identify where priority areas are where content or context has changed significantly, as we talked about electrification, EV readiness, climate action alignment, waste and materials management. So where a lot of changes may be needed. We'll caution that one risk in any update process is that every new priority becomes a new strategy. We'd like to avoid that. The student work points to a different approach. Keep the framework streamlined, but allow more flexibility in how communities demonstrate or accomplish each strategy. This matters because communities vary in size, high countryside, staffing, resources, authority, and local priorities. And so by allowing that, like the tons of resources and how to accomplish strategies, you then make it applicable to a variety of sizes of communities with different means. So we value the GRC as a regional framework. We think the next version has room to be more usable, current, and implementation ready. We hope that this synthesis is a good starting point for this update that you'd like to get done by the end of the year. And thanks again for the opportunity for Gabby and I and the students to share what we found, what they found really. I just led the class.
Just leading the class was no small feat, so thank you for that. And do you mind just maybe in the chat put all the students so we could just recognize and celebrate there? It was a big long list if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
If not, that's fine. We actually have the list, but we're appreciative to all of them.
I could tell you it's Gabby Foreman, Alicio Vasquez, Ethan Stein, Sarah Sheridan, Bryn Pesanen, Tori Smith, Sam Soria, Max Alexander, Ryan Regelbrugge, Patty Martinez, Sebastian Wong, and Dia Molina, and Oliver Myers. I think I got them all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. Thank you, Melissa. Congratulations, Oliver. Thank you for all your work on that. I think those are the only students we have. And thank you also to Scott and Zach and to all the other municipal officials and allies who spent time with the students interviewing. Also to my team who spent time really working with you and doing all the organizing. Cheryl organized, I can't say how many interviews with the municipalities and the student team. So it was quite the big project, and I'm just thrilled with the work and the outcome, and I really can't wait to dig into that. So we have time for a discussion and questions. Any questions for the NIU team or for Scott or Gail? It was very excellent, concise and comprehensive presentation. So I, again, will really excited to dig into the spreadsheet and the details there. So we would like a discussion and your feedback. Again, wherever you're coming from on the GRC, we really welcome your opinion on that. So we have some more Zoom poll questions just to hopefully spark some discussion. So we'll take, we can launch those Zoom poll questions, but I think they're open-ended questions. So you can maybe just think about them and raise your hand if you've got something you'd like to share. So again, so we've got an open-ended question on the gaps in the GRC, a multiple choice question on tracking and reporting your opinions on that, and then an open-ended one for recommendations on a GRC tracking platform. Thank you for answering that. Looking for, good. Getting a few more. Interesting feedback thus far on the GRC tracking. So. Okay, so we've got 17 responses, 19. Why don't we go ahead and get your responses? If you've got any gaps in the GRC, I'm not seeing it in the chat, so if you want to raise your hand, we're happy to hear from your thoughts on gaps in the GRC. No one has any gaps in the GRC?
And the poll to be able to see that.
I had one and I didn't answer the poll in time.
Okay, sorry. I think it's still open, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you...
That's okay. No, go ahead. What's your...
Sure. Well, I was just thinking, since the original or the last version of the GRC has come out, I feel like green stormwater infrastructure elements could be probably expanded to feature more of those components as goals.
Okay, good. Any others? I will admit that Melissa and Gabriel and Oliver know this, but so we have the EV readiness program, widely successful. We do not mention the word EVs in the GRC. So yes, I am aware of that. So the whole transportation section is slight. Could use a new use an update. Okay, so if there are no other gaps, then the GRC goals and strategies. So some would like it more useful, if there were reporting and measurability. And then I guess more important, yes, but just not important. So, does anybody want to talk about the role of tracking and reporting? And I will, if I didn't get a chance to mention it, but we had a tracking and reporting task force, quite a few years ago, where we spent time with municipalities and just kind of pulled out of the environment committee and got advisors on what that tracking tool could look like. So we sort of have a rough idea. But does anybody want to talk about, just raise their hand and discuss the reporting and tracking? Thanks, Brianna.
Yeah, sure. I'm Brianna from Will County, and I guess if they're talking about tracking, I might, if we're talking about being inclusive of communities that are at all different kinds of stages, then maybe considering what data or what information may be easier or more difficult for different communities to have access to. It might not be as varied for like our region, but I know when participating in groups from like sustainability staff around the country, it can be a little bit variable getting data, say from electric or gas utilities, even like basic things on how much different buildings are consuming, how much they're spending for a certain period of time. Same maybe even with like solid waste, depending on how maybe large a municipality is, or how maybe disjointed any of the contracting or any of the reporting is with all of that. I just mean maybe different municipalities will have different like difficulties that come with obtaining data or like information that could help them report anything in a tracking form. So that maybe having some flexibility there might be helpful for having all of those municipalities participate.
Well, listen, Gabriel, I know you looked at that. Do you want to talk about it? And then we have some feedback too, but go ahead.
I can talk a little bit about it. It was, I used measurability as my lens when I went through and reviewed the GRC. So I spent a lot of time thinking about the measurability. And I found that it coincides also with how clear a goal is. If it's measurable, it typically has clearer language that lends itself to you read it and you're like, okay, I know what I need to do with this. And we also found it's a very important process for like getting grants and money. And as we reviewed, we even were able to suggest easy tracking strategies like looking at the data on websites and okay, how many people have accessed this site for stuff like sustainable communities. When we're looking at education, you can track how many people have looked into a website. You can do community responses. And so I think it's a really important part, and you can do a lot of work in it to make it more accessible for smaller staff.
I'd like to add that, Brianna, what you're saying might be really relevant for, like if you're thinking about a very specific strategy to accomplish a goal, and it might be easier for larger communities to use strategy X. But in order to accomplish that goal, a different community may need to adopt a different strategy. And I think that might be one of the ways that we were thinking would help communities of different means still work towards sustainability as a region, while knowing that the reporting is going to be different. And then instead of reporting how you met like that tracking goal of for that strategy, it would be reporting we're doing X for achieving this strategy to the caucus. So it's reporting as a region are you doing, as opposed to like the actual data that you collected for the strategy.
And in the NIU student work, what they did was sort of look out the nuance between a one-time or an ongoing or an annual event, which I think really helps too. So that would allow for actions, not just metrics. And so the real barrier when we did the climate action planning was we got to do a greenhouse gas inventory and we can't get the data from the utilities and it's really difficult. And the focus will not be necessarily on that kind of data. When we did the task force, there was a real emphasis on this needs to be achievable. We want measures and we want to know how we're doing, but we can't spend time reporting. And I will admit, part of the Global Covenant of Mayors, we were invited to do annual reporting, and I think I did it for 3 cycles. And I spent days on it and I found it not worth the sort of the juice, not worth the squeeze. So we can kind of say, well, what is a municipality accomplishing? And one of the things that we learn from municipalities, that's why we want to hear your feedback on this. But for example, when we started on Soul Smart, as I said, as one of the organizers of this locally of this national program, we kept getting questions about, well, how's it going? Are we seeing a difference in communities? And Village of Schaumburg, added a category on their permitting system so they could track the number of permits that they had issued for solar. And that's just a little procedural thing, which Cheryl has really integrated into the EV readiness program. But if you look at the statistic when I'm bragging about the Soul Smart program, we always say, well, we've had a 21,000 something percent increase in the number of rooftop solar permits. And we know that because they can go to baseline just by the number of permits. And then you can dig in more, but that's a usable metric. And granted, you have to set that system up to do it, but that will be the focus on the tracking and reporting. We hope. Anyone else on tracking and reporting? Thoughts on that? And we are interested in your ideas for tracking platforms. So go ahead and if you have some experience with them. I know some of the communities are involved in our Urban Sustainability Directors Network. Some are Global Covenant of Mayors. Some are ICLEI and their different reporting tools. Many of those are robust. So if you have any platform that you think would work for communities like DeKalb and Countryside and the rest of you, we're certainly open to that. We are exploring them. There is a collaboration called Sustainable States Network, of which Sustainable Jersey is a part of, and there's 13 states and they all share a common platform and they're doing some updates. So we're part of that group as a regional collaborative looking at what their platform might come out of or might produce. Anything else? Open discussion on GRC, usefulness, how to make it better, your experiences with it. Going once? Any comments? Okay, how about a round of applause for NIU students and Melissa for getting great work done. I think we already did that, but thank you so much for the work on that.
Yay. Where are we? Thank you. Oh, I didn't see it.
Okay, so we have much to work on, and the goal is to get some drafts out this year yet, so that we can have a new product for end of year, beginning of next is what we're looking for. So we can wrap up a few minutes early here. I did want to mention and ask for help with Chicago Climate Week. So the Chicago Climate Week, you may know New York has a climate week that has been really popular. It's been going on for more than a decade. And the Chicago Climate Week is a new initiative where they are looking for during the week of July 18th through the 25th, that there would be organizations that would host a climate event. We're really keen on seeing that the climate events occur regionally, not just in the city of Chicago, so that organizations are invited to design something under the umbrella of Climate Week. And the way it will work, and Juliet is chatting that, is that there will be promotion of all these events. So we really encourage you to consider hosting an event of any size. Someone just pointed out, I think Cheryl or Juliet pointed out that our Environment Committee meeting, which will be the next one in our regularly scheduled meeting on July 21, where we're going to be talking about the Chicago Climate Action Plan, which is the most recent climate action plan that was done under the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, and it was completed by CMAP with cooperation from the Mayor's Caucus and the Northern Indiana Regional Planning Commission. So that could be a Climate Week event. I had the idea, we have the idea of sort of kicking around sustainable suburbs. And if there's something that you could do that would be a tour of your community, something interesting in your community, particularly if it's accessible by public transportation, might be a neat thing to do to try to draw folks and the attention out into the region. That we'd certainly love for your ideas. And again, if you want to say something in the chat, if we can get in touch with you, if you want to kind of talk through an idea. We don't have all the ideas, all the solutions, but we'd certainly really be excited to see that there'd be communities wanting to host something locally. So, and with that, next Environment Committee meeting, we are taking off June. We have the EV Readiness 4th cohort graduation in June, so we're going to be busy with that, and we could use a break. So we have 9 more communities graduating in the 4th cohort, and the 5th cohort is open for enrollment. So if you have not yet participated in that, you can raise your hand if you have, and if you had a good experience with that, we'd certainly love for you to share that. But welcome anybody else who would like to join into that. Municipalities and counties are welcome to go through the EV readiness cohort with us. So, there's any other closing comments or questions or anything you wanted to add before we close out? 3 minutes early. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for coming, and thank you to Scott and to Gail for presenting, and to Melissa and to Gabriel for presenting, and thank you for your comments and ideas. Much appreciated.